Breaking right now at 11 o'clock, a deadly house fire in the Hollywood Hills. And tonight we're learning about the man with a very famous last name who lived and died there. Eyewitness News reporter Jory Rand live in the Hollywood Hills with the breaking new details tonight. Jory.
Mark, firefighters had a difficult time accessing this home because it's set so far back off the road, and it's at the top of a very steep hill with a very thin stairwell leading up there. Once they did access the home, they made the tragic discovery inside, and it turns out the man who lived there might have been a billionaire. Hollywood Hills neighbors did everything they could to put out this raging fire that broke out in a home on Lookout Mountain Avenue.
I was going up the stairs, and right as I approached the top of the stairs, the flames burst out of the house.
Firefighters knocked down the flames in about 20 minutes, but found the home's elderly occupant dead inside. Neighbors identifying him as Will Rothschild of the Rothschild family.
We're getting a new roof put on tomorrow, and so I told my wife email him to make sure it's okay that we use part of his driveway. And he never responded, and I said, well, that's so unlike him.
Rothschild is described by neighbors as an eccentric millionaire or even billionaire with multiple properties and dozens of some of the most expensive cars on earth. But on a street lined with multi-million-dollar homes and mansions occupied by celebrities and the powerful, Rothschild was said to have lived as a bit of a recluse in a small, old, rickety home in conditions described as that of a hoarder, something the fire department seemed to tactfully confirm tonight.
Given the fire damage, it's kind of hard to determine how much of that was prior to the fire and how much of it is the building itself that has been demolished by the fire.
And while some neighbors had never even seen him and assumed the house was vacant, those that did know him are saddened by the loss.
It is very sad. He was a good guy, good neighbor.
This is very tough for those that knew him. Arson investigators were on scene, but the fire department tells me that is typical for any fire in which someone loses their life. Once they cleared their investigation, the coroner came to remove the body. We are now awaiting a cause of death to see whether he had passed before the fire or he perished within the fire. Now we await to see what kind of treasures may have been inside of this. We've already gotten a peek at some of the cars on the property. There are high-end vintage cars, including one that a neighbor says once belonged to Michael Jordan.
But we begin with surprising new revelations about the man with the famous name who died in a mysterious Hollywood Hills house fire late last month. Neighbors believed he was a member of the Rothschild banking family and possibly a billionaire. But tonight, we've learned a lot more about the true identity of William de Rothschild and the hidden life he led for more than 40 years. Eyewitness News reporter Jory Rand joining us live now in the Hollywood Hills with those new revelations tonight. Jory.
That's right, Mark. The man who lived and died in this Laurel Canyon home was known to neighbors simply as Will Rothschild. They believed he was part of that famous family, but it turns out he was not, and his name originally was not Rothschild at all. It was Kaufman, and tonight we caught up with a family member in Oregon who had no idea he had been living here these last 40 years. 1 week after this Hollywood Hills home caught fire and a man known to neighbors as Will Rothschild, a billionaire member of the famed Rothschild family, was found dead inside, the picture of who this man really was is beginning to come into focus. It turns out 87-year-old William de Rothschild used to be William Kaufman of Oregon. The LA Times reporting he changed his name in the 80s. Hi, is this Richard?
It is.
Hi, Richard. Sorry to bother you. This is Jory Rand calling from ABC7 in Los Angeles. Tonight we reached out to Richard Kaufman, brother to William de Rothschild, who had no idea his brother was even alive.
I thought he had passed away 40 years ago. Last contact I had with him was a telephone call that was kind of odd. It seemed like he had something to tell me. Didn't, and when I never heard from him again, I kind of presumed that maybe he had an illness, didn't want to talk about it, and just quietly passed away.
He hadn't, and had been quietly living in Laurel Canyon, somehow living like a billionaire with multiple properties and dozens of luxury vehicles on elevators inside his garage.
Those I saw with my own eyes, so they're there.
So where did the money come from?
Your guess is as good as mine.
His brother was equally baffled.
But I don't know how he made his money.
And neither friend nor family really knew who this person, who had lived as William Kaufman and Will de Rothschild, really was.
I was trying to decide whether I should be sad about this, but in reality, I'm somewhat happy about it, that he had a life, even though it might have been somewhat bizarre, that he lived a long life, did not pass away in his 40s.
He was a kind, gentle soul, and as far as he goes, there's no deception on his part. Absolutely not. He was nice to everyone. He never had a bad word to say about anyone, and was a good neighbor. I consider him a good friend, and I'm really sorry that he's gone.
So it was really important to neighbors here to let everyone know that Will was not posing as a member of the famous family. He never said that he was, but the lifestyle and the name could have led people to use their imagination to connect the dots, but he certainly had that lifestyle. As to where the money came from, so we had an inkling when we came here a week ago, and the Hummer parked in the driveway was registered to a Margot Merkin. She is the heiress to the budget rent-a-car fortune. She lives in the home up the street. The LA Times reporting that the two are married, though to neighbors here, they just assumed she was a cousin who he would go and visit. He lived here in this much smaller, rundown house. There is a much larger, much fancier home up the hill. They both apparently belong to Merkin. That could be where the money came from, but again, we're waiting to figure that out. We're also waiting to hear from the coroner for official cause of death.